Welcome to This Explainer. Look, today we are unpacking a literal masterclass on human connection. We're going to break down a powerful 10-point roadmap that's designed to completely transform how you connect, how you communicate, and how you build influence with the people around you. And honestly, what's really fascinating here is that this transformation, it actually starts long before you even utter a single word. So whether you're trying to command a boardroom, deepen your personal relationships, or just, stop feeling so incredibly awkward at networking events, consider this playbook your structured guide to getting there. 7? I mean, it seems like a pretty small number, right? But psychologically speaking, it is massive. Science tells us that you have exactly 7 seconds to make a lasting impression on someone's brain. Literally, in just 7 seconds, before you've even had the chance to say hello and introduce yourself, the people around you have already subconsciously decided how confident, how approachable, and how trustworthy you are. So the million-dollar question is, how do we conquer those crucial 7 seconds? Let's jump right into phase 1, first impressions without words. This first phase is all about the silence setup. Now, you've probably heard that popular saying, your vibe attracts your tribe. It's everywhere. But the reality detailed in our source material is actually a bit different. Your vibe precedes your tribe. Your energy, your posture, your overall physical presence, it arrives in the room way before anything else does. You simply cannot attract anyone to your ideas or your personality if your physical presence is actively pushing them away. So how do we actively manufacture that great vibe? Well, we've got 6 actionable body language micro tips you can start using today. First up, the 50-70 rule for eye contact. You want to look into a person's eyes about 50% of the time when you're speaking and 70% of the time when you're listening. It makes you attentive without, being totally creepy. Number 2, power posing. Taking just a few minutes to adopt an expansive posture actively increases your testosterone, which boosts your confidence, and reduces cortisol, which lowers your stress. Third, point your shoulders and feet directly at the person you're speaking to. It shows you're genuinely engaged. Fourth, use your hands. Keeping them completely stiff makes you look unconfident, but waving them around wildly makes you look nervous. You just have to find a moderate rhythm. Fifth, keep those arms uncrossed to stay open and approachable. And finally, the handshake. Look, don't break their bones, but definitely skip the wet noodle too. Go for a steady, firm grip for exactly 1 to 2 seconds, making sure to hold eye contact. Okay, so you've absolutely nailed the silent introduction, and now it's time to actually speak. What should your very first words be? Well, it turns out the sweetest sound in the world to any human being is their own name. This is a brilliant psychological trick. Just think about Starbucks for a second. They aren't asking for your name just for logistics. They write it on the cup, they call it out across the crowded cafe, you read it, you feel this tiny little spark of validation, and hey, you might even post a picture of it on social media. It is quite literally free marketing, built entirely on the psychological fact that we absolutely love hearing our own names. So use people's names early and use them often. Which brings us right into phase 2, the mechanics of speech. Now that we have the physical setup locked in, let's shift our focus to the actual delivery of your words. And this all comes down to the 3 P's of voice. First is pitch. When you're excited, your pitch naturally goes up, but when you need to convey gravity and seriousness, your pitch drops low. The trick is to modulate it intentionally. Second is pace. If you speak way too fast, you just sound nervous, but drag it out too slow and you become boring. You want to slow down to emphasize the really important points and speed up for those casual transitions. But the third P, that's your secret weapon, the pause. Taking a strategic second of silence completely draws the listener in and makes whatever you say next hit 10 times harder. Actually, here's a quick challenge for you. Open the camera app on your phone today, record a 1-minute video of yourself just talking about anything, and watch it back. Analyze your pitch, your pace, and your pauses. Doing this daily will literally transform your vocal delivery in just a few weeks. But hey, what happens when your brain just completely flatlines and you have no idea what to say next? Enter the echoing technique. This thing is an absolute lifesaver. Instead of panicking, all you do is listen to the last sentence the other person said, grab a key phrase from it, thoughtfully repeat it back, and use it as a springboard. The source material highlights this great example from the movie 3 Idiots. When the character Farhan mentions he likes wildlife photography, Rancho simply echoes back, wildlife photography, interesting, and then just asks a follow-up about that passion. It instantly proves you're actively listening, and it effortlessly keeps the conversational ball rolling. All right, moving along to phase 3, the entertainer's toolkit. This is where we take perfectly normal interactions and elevate them so that you become truly memorable. You see, humans are biologically wired for stories. It's literally how we've passed down information for millennia. If you're just listing off facts, people are going to tune out. But the good news is, you can structure absolutely any anecdote using the incredibly simple CAR framework. That stands for conflict, action, result. Whether you're recounting a blockbuster movie plot, hero loves a girl, father disapproves, there's a conflict, the hero fights to win him over, that's the action, and they finally get married, which is the result. Or maybe you're explaining a startup founder's journey from being a broke college dropout to building a unicorn company. The CAR method gives your speech instant momentum. It keeps your audience totally hooked on the suspense. And you know what pairs perfectly with a really good story? Humor. But what if you're sitting there thinking, I'm just not a naturally funny person? Well, you can actually artificially manufacture humor using what's called the switch technique. When you break it down, comedy is essentially just subverted expectations. You set up a perfectly normal, predictable situation, and then at the very last second, you abruptly flip the ending or completely change the angle. By simply observing the world around you and asking yourself, how can I unexpectedly switch the ending to this sentence? You can actually train your brain to naturally interject humor into your everyday conversations. Finally, we reach the deepest level, Phase 4, Emotional and Relational Mastery. This final phase is all about mastering empathy, because frankly, without empathy, every single technique we've talked about falls completely flat. To illustrate this source material paints a really vivid picture. Imagine a mother and her young child walking into this massive, gorgeous toy store in a mall. The mom is pointing out all the incredible toys, the games, all the bright, fun colors. But instead of being happy, the child is just absolutely miserable. They won't stop crying and they're begging to go home. Naturally, the mother is getting incredibly frustrated. I want you to really think about this for a second. Why on earth is this kid crying in a place literally designed to bring them joy? What is the mother missing here? The answer reveals itself the moment the mother notices her child's shoelace is untied. She physically crouches down to the floor to tie it. And suddenly, for the very first time, she sees the entire store from the exact height and perspective of her child. And guess what? From down there, you can't see the beautiful toys on the shelves. All you can see is a terrifying, claustrophobic forest of strangers' giant legs pushing past you. Honestly, no wonder the kid was crying. This brilliantly illustrates the concept of leveling down. To truly communicate with someone, you cannot just yell from your own height. You have to lower yourself to the emotional and intellectual level of your audience, stepping right into their reality and using their language. We see this all the time with highly effective communicators. Even top politicians, when they're speaking to an audience of Gen Z voters, will actively do a vibe check or adjust their vocabulary to mirror the crowd. They are leveling down to make sure their message actually connects with the reality of the people standing right in front of them. Of course, even if you have incredibly high empathy, conflicts are still going to happen. It's just human nature. When an argument gets heated, most people instinctively raise their voices or start throwing insults. Instead, you need to equip yourself with the broken record technique. When someone pushes back aggressively, do not escalate the situation. Simply, and very calmly, repeat your core point using the exact same neutral words. Don't add anger, don't throw in extra justifications, and absolutely do not use profanity. By sounding like a calm, completely unbothered broken record, you force the other person to realize just how serious you are. It dramatically de-escalates the conflict without ever compromising your boundaries. Ultimately, all of this culminates in emotional intelligence, and it really comes down to two entirely different ways to operate in your life. The disasters habit is what we call the 2P method: panic and proceed. Someone says something, you assume the absolute worst, you panic, and you immediately react blindly. For sure, this is exactly how relationships get destroyed. But the antidote is the 4P method: pause, process, plan, and then proceed. When you feel triggered, you take a deep breath, you process the other person's perspective, you plan out your response, and only then do you engage. The entire difference between a reaction and a response is just that tiny bit of space you allow yourself in between. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I'm going to leave you with a bit of a provocative challenge. Think about the very next difficult conversation or argument you know you're going to have. Are you going to blindly react with panic? Or are you going to use this playbook, take a breath, and truly respond? The choice is entirely up to you. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.